value of k. What does k indicate here? It indicates the number of clusters. Okay, here in this algorithm, first we have to decide the number of k in advance. We have to tell the algorithm in advance what is the number of k, that is how many clusters you are going to form in advance. So that is the main feature. So what is the objective? The k-means algorithm helps us to come up with best possible value of k. That is, it will tell us what are the best possible number of clusters that can be formed from the given raw data set. Okay, this is also called hard clustering. And data points or objects belong exclusively to one cluster. So here the algorithm, what is the algorithm? There are 6 steps. First, what is the first? We have to decide the number of k. Okay, first we have to decide the number of k. Start with k centroids. What is a centroid? What is a centroid? Central point of a cluster. Okay, central point of a cluster. So for step 1 is start with k centroids by putting them at a random place. Step 2, compute the distance of every data point from the centroid and cluster them accordingly. Adjust the centroid such that they become the center of gravity for given clusters. Fourth, recluster every point based on the distance with centroid. Fifth, adjust the centroids, recompute clusters and repeat the process till there are no more shiftings of data points between the clusters. So here we have taken a data set. Okay, here we do not have target variable and there are 2 features along x and y axis. Just by just by seeing this data set, we can say that there are 2 clusters. Okay, so let us begin with this algorithm, k-means algorithm. What is the first step? Take the same data set. So first we have to decide the number of k value, so number of clusters. So start with k centroids by putting them at random place. Here I have taken 2 centroids. You can put these 2 centroids anywhere in this 2-dimensional space. So here I have taken these 2 centroids and next compute the distance of every data point from the centroid. Okay, every data point from the centroid. So mathematically how do? You first you draw a perpendicular line, calculate the distance between the centroids, then compute the distance of each and every data point from the centroid and cluster them accordingly. Third step is adjust the centroids so that they become the center of gravity for given clusters. So keep moving, keep adjusting the centroids so that they become the center point of the surrounding data points. Next, step 4. So what is step 4? Again, recluster every data point based on the distance. Now you can see in this, you can see in this first diagram. So keep on adjusting centroids. Now these 2 points, you can see these 2 green points are turning into red when you recluster every data point based on the distance. So keep on repeating. Fourth step, readjust the cluster point based on the distance centroid. Fifth step, again adjust centroids. Now these 2 red points, now here at this stage we have 2 red points and 1 green. Again repeat the process. Okay, here this is the one, this is the latest one. So now this is the one, 5th step, and in 6th step what we have to do? Recompute clusters and repeat this process till data points stop changing their clusters. Before it was green, this data point is green, and now it is after reclustering, recomputing the cluster, now it is turning. So now you can see how the data points are slowly changing their clusters using this iteration process. So now here repeat this process until the data points no longer change their clusters. So these are the final clusters and this is the visual representation of the 2 sets of clusters. Now if we take, now here just by visual examination I say that there are 2 clusters. But what if this data set is given to you, I say that there are 2 clusters, next person says that there are 4 clusters can be formed, the third person say no, this is not 2 or no, this is neither 2 or nor 4, there can be 6 clusters formed. So now how to decide the number of clusters for a given data set? K-means algorithm is used to decide the number of clusters, right? So that's what we are going for. So now how to decide the number of clusters? Select an optimal number of clusters, or to come up with the best possible value of K, we use a method called elbow method. So in general, there are 2 methods, elbow method and Silhouette method, but the most widely used method these days is elbow method. So in elbow method, what we are doing, we are setting K value, we are computing the sum of squared distance. So let us begin that. So what are we doing here? Look at this. What are we trying to do here? Anybody?
I'm finding the sum of squared errors.
Yes. So here what are we doing? We are trying to compute the errors, right? So here in this elbow method, we will start with, let us take K value as 2 and then compute the sum of squared error, SSE. You already know what is it. So what is SSE? SSE, sum of squared error means for each cluster, for each of the clusters, we compute the distance of every data point from the center. So here every data point from the center, compute the distance from every data point from the green cluster, right? So what we do, we take the distance of individual data points from the centroid, square it and then sum it up. Okay, now this is the sum of errors of sum of SSE for first cluster. Similarly, this is SSE for second cluster. So what are these? These are nothing but the errors. Okay, so these are nothing but the errors. So we'll repeat this process for all the clusters. If there are multiple clusters, repeat this process for all the clusters, and then in the end, what you get? You get the total sum of squared errors, right? This is the total sum of squared errors. This is for the value 1 through k. So now this is an example. Here I have taken 11 clusters. For these 11 clusters, this is an example. This is just an example. So what can you make out from this? These are the clusters, okay? X-axis. Along x-axis, there are 11 clusters. Along y-axis, there is an SSE for each cluster. What do you understand from this?
As the number of clusters are increasing, the total error is decreasing.
Correct, exactly. So what you can observe here, you can observe that as the number of clusters is increasing, the SSE is decreasing. Both are inversely proportional to each other, right? It's kind of an intuitive, it is an intuition, right? So that's what you can say. The more clusters, the less the SSE. So SSE will become almost 0 when there are 11 clusters in the data set. So here we are assuming 11 data points. So here value of k, the error is becoming 0, SSE is becoming 0, right? So now, isn't it looking like an elbow here, this curve, right? It is looking like an elbow. That is why this is called elbow plot. Now for this particular 11 clusters, for this particular data set, for this particular data points, this set, how to decide the number of clusters? So here look at these data points, look at this elbow shape, and this is a turning point, right? There is a twist, there is a twist here. So what is the best value for k? Best value for k is 4. You can see this is the best value. Let me take. So now curve is coming like this. So here it is shifting. So this is the best value for K for this particular data point. Okay. So now see elbow technique. So this is almost like an elbow here. So where this is here there is a curve, and where the curve is turning at this particular 4. Now you can say that the best possible value for K is 4. This is called elbow technique. What does it do? It helps us to come up with the best possible value of K. It helps us to decide the number of clusters for a given data set. So now we'll look into the Python implementation. So here I have taken a data set. It's the data set. There are around 20 to 30, 28 to 30 observations and 3 features: name, age, income. So here I don't know. I don't have any target variable, no target label as such. No, I don't know what I have to do. I just take this and group these data points into similar clusters, right? So what I do, I include all the essential libraries. Here from the first line, you can see that from sklearn, I'm importing the method k-means, right? K-means. And next pandas as usual, sklearn from import this one min-max scalar for standardization. Next as it is. Next call this data set income CSV, and here I'm just displaying the data set. So now if I use scatter plot, it is showing the data points like this into three clusters, right? So 3 clusters are formed for this particular data points. Next, what I'm doing here, I'm calling k-means method to create an object km, right? I'm creating an object km, and what these are the default parameters. Okay, these are the default parameters of the k-means value object. Next, I'm putting these data points into clusters, and then I'm predicting. So which all clusters they are belonging to, what data points are belonging to which data cluster, which clusters. So it is showing me here, I'm taking the age and income along x and y axis respectively, and it is showing the clusters of the data points. Next, it is showing here in this, you can see the clusters belonging to the data points 2, 0, 1. It means 0 means first cluster, 1 is second cluster, and third is 0 first, 1 is second is second cluster. So now what I'm doing, I'm using a data frame, I'm creating a data frame for cluster 0, df1, df2 for cluster 1, df3 for cluster 2, and I'm taking, I'm coloring those clusters into green, red, black respectively, and then I'm plotting this, and this is the visualization, right? So now here red cluster is okay, all the data points are belonging to red cluster, but here there are black data points. These black data points are jumbled up, right? So red cluster is perfectly categorized, but second and third cluster, that is green and black clusters are not perfectly categorized. Why is it happening so? Can anybody say why we are getting the jumbled data points here? Any answers?
And as per elbow, we need to do 4 clusters now.
No, we have not come to that stage yet. So why we are getting jumbled data here?
Ma'am, is it because k-means can't handle outliers?
Not like that. You look at the magnitude of x and y axis. Magnitude of x axis values are very less, right? But what is the magnitude of y-axis? Values are very high. These magnitudes are high and these are lower magnitude values, right?
Data is not normalized.
Are you understanding? Look at the values. These are low magnitude. These are of high magnitude. It means you will get biased output, right? So output will be biased towards the higher magnitude. That is why you are getting the shuffling of these data points. So to overcome that, what do you have to do?
Normalize it.
Yes, next step is normalization. So we use min-max scaler for normalization or standardization. So min-max scaler you saw in the first line I showed here. Min-max scaler and processing, import min-max scaler for normalization. So now here I'm converting the x and y wall features into normal range, the common scale. So income, age, now you can see that both are in the same scale, both are in the same scale. So 0.6 decimal digits, 0.6 decimal digit. It means the features, age, income, they are of the same magnitude. So in order to get unbiased output, first we have to bring them to common range using standardization, normalization, whatever. So min-max scaler is one method in k-means used to standardize the values. So next, so here I'm using k-means. Look at this first one. Use k-means method. Here n cluster. It is identifying the number of clusters. Here I'm deciding the number of clusters as 3 and creating an object km of type k-means, and then I'm predicting. So, okay, and now what I'm doing here, I'm predicting, and it is showing the clusters belonging to 0, 1, 2. And here it is just showing the table which all data points are belonging to clusters 0, 1 and 2. But here if you see this, here there is no clarity much. So draw a scatter plot. So draw a scatter plot. Here now you can see after standardization you got, right? You got the perfect clusters. Right? Here you are getting the perfect clusters. Next, to identify the central point of these clusters. What do? To identify the central points of these clusters, call the method km, call this object to find the center of clusters. Km cluster centers. Here I have already initialized this import k-means, right? SKL cluster import k-means, and then I'm creating an object, then km clusters. It is showing the cluster central points of these 3 clusters, right? So here x and y coordinates. Excuse me. Yes, now locate the clusters. After locating clusters, what I am doing here, I am just coloring the cluster, labeling as centroid, and then plotting, right? Now you can see there are 3 clusters with purple color clusters. What are these? These are the center points of cluster 0, cluster 1 and cluster 2 respectively. Here, to decide the number of clusters, we are using elbow technique in this method. So what I am doing here, look at this. Try to understand what I am doing here. Yes.
We are trying with different k values and number of clusters and storing the sum of square errors into a list.
Yes. Here, as per the elbow technique, we'll go through the number of k's. That is, number of k's is 1 through 10, and then try to calculate the sum of square errors and plot them. Okay, then plot them and then try to find this elbow. So now we'll define the range of k. Here range is 1 through 10. Okay, and what is this array? I am collecting SSE for each value of k in this SSE value. Okay, for k in range, what I am doing, that is going through this iteration is going through 1 to 9. For each iteration, I create a new model, right? I create a new model with clusters k, and then I call fit. Then what I'm doing, I'm calculating the overall SSE. What is this overall SSE? There is a parameter here. Can you see? There is a parameter inertia. What this inertia does? This inertia parameter will give us the sum of squared errors. Okay, this inertia parameter, it gives the sum of squared errors right from 1 through 10. Okay, so now here you are displaying here SSE. So these are the sum of square errors for all the data points right from 1 through 10. Okay, don't get confused, it's just an example. This is not pertaining to this particular data set. Okay, now you can see elbow plot. I'm plotting this k range and SSE. K range, how many clusters? From 1 through 9, that is 10 clusters. And SSE, the value ranges from from the scale 0 to 5. So what I'm doing here, 0 to 5. And when you plot these values, you are getting a curve in an elbow shape, right? You are getting a curve in an elbow shape. Now, what is the best possible value? That is, elbow method helps you to find out the best possible value of k. What is the best possible value of k? Look at the curve where it is changing the direction, right? Where there is a perpendicular, there is almost like a perpendicular shift from x to y axis. So this is the curve 3, right? Right? Can you see this? This is value 3. K is equal to 3. It is helping us to come up with the possible value, an optimal value of k. That is, k is equal to 3. So now this is the elbow method. That's what I have taken, same thing. And now I am drawing a scatter plot. Okay, scatter plot. So this is the final set of clusters with their centroids, and this is the elbow method. So 3 clusters, there are 3 clusters with their centroids. So with this, K means clustering algorithm completes. So far you have studied hierarchical clustering, density based clustering, and K-means. In hierarchical clustering, you studied agglomerative clustering, and what is the other one? Divisive clustering. Divisive clustering is rarely used. Most widely used technique is agglomerative. What are the advantages of hierarchical clustering? Hierarchical clustering is easy to implement. It has good visualization capability, and there is no need to specify the number of clusters in advance here. But in K-means, you have to declare the number of K in advance. The advantage of hierarchical clustering is no need to specify the value of K in advance. What are the disadvantages of hierarchical clustering? It has a cubic time complexity in many cases, so it is slower compared to K-means. Decision regarding the selection of merge or split point. Once a decision is made, it cannot be undone. It doesn't work well in case of noisy and outlier data, and it is not scalable. Coming to density based clustering, you studied dbSCAN algorithm. Here also you need not specify the number of clusters in advance. dbSCAN is easy to handle clusters with arbitrary shape. That is, dbSCAN algorithm deals with arbitrary shape of clusters. and it deals well with noisy data. It handles outliers very well. These are the advantages. Disadvantages, it cannot handle the data points with varying densities. And the results depend on the distance measure. Third one, K means clustering. It is a simple clustering approach. It is an efficient approach compared to hierarchical clustering, and it is less complex compared to hierarchical. Disadvantages, you have to supply the value of K in advance to the algorithm, and it cannot handle the categorical values properly, and it cannot discover the non-convex shape, and results varies in the presence of outlier. So these are the comparisons. So with this, clustering approach completes. I will upload the PPTs and notes after this class. Over to Priyanka.
Thank you, ma'am.
Welcome.
Students, are you able to see my screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. Okay, we'll just start maybe because we have some more time anyways. We'll just start with decision tree. Actually, one only this algorithm was left off because I was not able to handle class that time. So I requested ma'am to handle the next topic. So in between, I didn't want to start a classification algorithm. But then this was pending from the previous topic, like different classifiers, what you have learned, decision tree is pending. And in your syllabus, actually, there is no a neural network concept coming in, but then we have added it. So at least we'll give a small introduction because of course, most of you are doing projects based on deep learning, etc. So at least you should have some basic knowledge of what is neural network. So we thought we'll just have it in your course. So I'll be covering that also after this decision tree. Okay, so neural network, just maybe I know that a few of you would have done deep learning course. So that's fine. So of course it will be easy for you and you can help me out when we solve problems, etc. So but then there would be deep learning was not compulsory elective for you, right?
Ma'am, everyone did deep learning, ma'am. Like the other
Oh, all of
electives
you
did
did.
enough participants.
They had
Oh,
a
okay,
subject,
okay.
Priyanka, last semester they had a subject
Okay.
deep learning.
Yeah, I know that they had, but it usually used to be elective. So I thought, okay, so all of you have
Yes,
done
and
it.
that elective got cancelled.
Oh, okay. So all of you know. So then maybe one class is enough. I'll just browse through and then maybe since I have added it now, I'm not removing it. So we'll just have it like one class or something. You can just solve it and show me just basic neural network, not deep learning, just basic neural network. So then let us start with decision tree. So hope you still remember about supervised approaches. Don't forget, and I still want to repeat that when you say supervised, of course, you have your data and your output also is known to you. So it may be continuous or discrete. So if it is discrete, it could be classification problem. If it is continuous, it is regression problem. But whatever it may be, when you have your output also, when you with your data, so you have X and Y. So you have your input and corresponding output in the data, and you're trying to build models which can actually find out some kind of relation between these. So or mapping between these input and output. So then we say it is supervised. And unsupervised, as last few classes you were listening to unsupervised approaches, which is like, say for example, clustering. So where you have when your problem is unsupervised, you should remember that you don't have a label like that. There is no output, there is no label. You just have some data. You don't know how many class, how many clusters, etc. We say clusters, but we are deciding on that k value, okay, by some mechanism. But then we are deciding, right? It's not known to you from the data that you have 3 clusters, 4 clusters, etc. Maybe some domain expert plus some methods you identify some value of k. But then otherwise, like say for example, if it's a classification problem, of course it is evidently there that how many classes are there, or if it's a regression problem, what values it would take, etc. is clear to you because the output is also known to you. So we are again going back to a supervised approach, which is here a classification approach, which is decision tree algorithm. Okay. I think few of you have already started using it here and there in your minor project, etc. But let me just say how it works. So of course, tree you are familiar. In different courses you will have learned tree. Okay. So you know that when you have a tree, you of course have nodes, isn't it? Nodes and branches, etc. And then you may have a leaf node. Similarly, here also we have nodes, intermediate nodes, root node, intermediate nodes, and then leaf nodes. So when you say leaf, it is usually our class label or our prediction. Okay, so that is in our decision trees. So you have root node and other nodes which are some kind of decisions based on the attributes. So, and then when you come to the end, when it is the leaf node, it is your final decision or your class labels. So let us, we'll see the example. So for example, this is actually a decision tree built using a data set for whether to approve. There are some details of the some people, and then whether loan application, and then whether it is to approve or reject the application, loan application. So if you can see in the decision tree, the leaf nodes are approve or reject. It's a two-class classification problem. So you are deciding whether it is approve or reject. Okay, and then what are these? These are different attributes. Employed is one attribute, credit score is another attribute, income is another attribute, what was there in the data set. And when you say employed and then you put yes or no, which means employed takes a value yes or no. So these are the values of the this particular attribute. So we have attributes and then we have the final class labels, and this in the on the branches you have values of these attributes. Okay, so the notations etc might vary a bit in different books, different what is that sites etc. But then the basic understanding is the same. This is another example, if you can, a very simple example. So based on the body temperature, gives birth, etc., they are classifying it as mammals or non-mammals. Okay. So some decision tree is already formed. So in this they have considered two attributes. So first attribute is body temperature, second attribute is gives birth, and then for body temperature there are two values possible, which is warm and cold. Similarly, gives birth, it is yes or no, and then finally the class, which is mammals or non-mammals. Okay, so this is your decision tree. Say for example, with your training data, it is already created. Now a new unseen sample like a query sample or a test sample has come with no label. Okay, how will you predict this? Like say for example, there is some name, that's okay, body temperature and gives birth. So how do we predict the class? Can one of you just say what would be the class of this? Anyone? Am I audible?
Non-mammal, ma'am.
Sorry?
Non-mammal.
Non-mammal. Why did you say it is non-mammal? You are having a value for body temperature as warm. So you take this branch. Then there is a gives birth, which is no. So it is this branch. And then you reach a leaf node, which is your class label, which is non-mammal. So in this, from this decision tree, for this particular data, you can predict the class as non-mammals. Is that clear for everyone? Is there any doubt? This is like a basic tree is given to you, how you are predicting. That much only I have told now. Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. So how, so initially with the training data, you will of course build a tree, a decision tree, okay, based on certain criteria. We'll decide which node should be the first node to split, etc. All that is coming in the next few slides. So once we consider all that, we are building a decision tree, and now when you see an unlabeled data or the test data, you are able to predict the class. Okay, so class is non-mammals. Now say for example, it need not be always like this, discrete or categoric attributes. Always in the real data you may have continuous valued attributes also. So what we could do, we can split it. So for example, age, so you can even either split it as a binary split, that is like say greater than 30, less than 30, or maybe you may have multiple splits for that attribute. Okay, so you are discretizing, kind of discretizing it, but you are deciding how many values it should take. So it can be just a binary, so it is just one like two values, or it can be like 2, 3 or 4 values. So that way you are actually discretizing continuous numerical attributes also. Okay, so of course you can't have like all the continuous values as a numeric, I mean as an attribute, because we are deciding this split and then we have to branch it, so we can't have infinite branches possible. So we need to split it. So either we choose a binary split, or we may have based on our domain, etc. Maybe we are more interested in age is not a big factor, so we're just splitting it to like say age greater than 50, less than 50, something like that. But in some cases we are very specific about like say youth, middle-aged people, elders, etc. Then we may have more splits. Okay, so that is one thing what you should remember. Now this is another decision tree which is built. Okay, and we have different attributes, and then the values are taken like these, and then so you start growing the tree like this, and then the data, I mean the class label is buys computer or not. So yes or no is for the final leaf nodes are he or she buys the computer or not. So these are the different attributes possible. Now so this is another just an example training data. Okay, and so there is one thing I want to mention here. So you start building the tree in your training phase, isn't it? So when we start building the tree, if you see this particular value of this particular attribute, that is age 31 to 40, it has come that all the instances are already falling to yes category. Can we stop further branching out here, or still we'll grow the tree further? Can anybody answer? It's just a basic question, just think and say. I'll just repeat. So when we say, for example, age is less than or equal to 30, then there is some another attribute based on that. Like say previous example we have seen, if I say one student, new student detail is given, I will check, sorry, not new student, new person's detail is given, I will check age, whether if say the age is 20, I will understand that it falls under this branch. Now it will, so age less than or equal to 30. Now it will check whether student is yes or no. If it is yes, it will fall to the yes class. Now my question is, when we are growing the tree, like say after this attribute, this is given, and then so on, it might still grow further. Now in this case, when age is 31 to 40, age value is 31 to 40, that category, it has come that all the, because of the data, it has come that all the instances are falling under the class yes, that is student, sorry, the buys computer is yes. Now should we still consider some other attribute and still further grow the tree, or can we stop it here at only for this branch I am talking? Can somebody answer me? If my question is not clear, I can repeat. If my question is clear, you can answer.
And we can just stop it there now. Like,
yeah, why can we stop it here? Because our intention is what? Finally, to reach a class label. So since our data, like say for example, in this particular case, it is a coincidence, or because of our data distribution, it has come that all instances are falling under yes. So then we need not further split because already all the instances became yes. So we stop further growing any checking because already it is all belong to the same class. So we say that age less than 31 to 40, it is already reached the leaf node, which is the class label yes. Okay, we'll repeat this when we do the problem, but I'm just giving a hint. So this is another data where the action is reading or skipping a thread of a particular post or kind of online content. So the action or the class label is skip or read the thread, and then author, thread, length, where, etc. are the other attributes. Okay, so this is the training example. So possible split, of course, maybe we'll split based on the length, or maybe we'll split based on the thread, etc. Can be anything. So as of now, we don't know how we are going to decide which attribute to split first. Okay, as of now, we didn't learn about it. So it can be anything. For our knowledge now, it can be any attribute. So let us think if it is the length attribute. Okay, so the attribute length we are trying to split, and what are these? We have 80. Assume that we have 18 instances in our data, in your training, I mean in your data set, and when you we have 9 skips and 9 reads. If this is the case, and length is an attribute which can take long and short, 2 values. Okay, and then it has come that when you give long, it has come that all the instances are falling into skip class, and when you give short, I mean when length is having a short value, all the 2 instances are skip, others are read. Okay, this happened when we tried to split based on the length. Now what if it was thread? Okay, so thread is the attribute. We know that we have 9 skips and 9 reads in the full entire data, and thread has 2 values. If you can see here, thread attribute is taking 2 values, new thread, old thread. Okay, so and when it is new, it is skip equal to 3, read equal to 7, and when it is old, skip is equal to 6, read equal to 2. Now one of you, any of you can just tell me as of now, without knowing much details about our decision tree or the measures what could be used for finding the correct node to be split, etc. We don't know all that. Okay, but we just had one clue from the previous slide. Okay, just remember that and tell me which would be better. Just a guess, let it be wrong. One of you just say me which could be the best node to be split. Length split, this one, the first one, or the second one, which is best? Just considering this example.
Thread, no, ma'am. Like because it is more.
It is more
equal. Like it is 7029.
okay, but what is our intention? Why are we actually building a decision tree? To make a classification, isn't it?
Yeah, no, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, and our
length.
yeah, so yes. So and our leaf nodes should be the class labels. Yes or no? So we are growing a tree which could finally end up in all the leaf nodes which are in some class label. Of course, we have not reached the full tree. That is okay, but just by seeing any other idea you get. Okay, you have felt that it is dividing it equally. Anybody else? Did you feel something else? Which is best and why? Just guess, yeah. This is not some viva where I'll give you marks, etc. Just guess. Somebody guess.
Length, ma'am.
Why? I need the reason also.
Yeah, because reads it's 0, no, ma'am. In the length,
Yeah.
if you take the long part, so we can definitely say it is a no. If we have some value in that means, then we are unsure whether to say. We can say 70% yes and 30% no, but since read is 0, we can be 100% sure that we can say a no.
No means what? Skip you
like
are saying.
in the last example.
Yeah. So this is skip. There it was buys computer equal to yes or no. This is class is skip or read. So you're
Yeah,
telling class is skip. You can say here itself.
yeah, classes script
Yeah.
like that.
So you are feeling length is better attribute when we compare this. So what he says is actually more sensible with respect to our decision tree, because our aim is to reach our leaf nodes fast. Okay, because finally what are we trying to do? We are trying to come up with the classification labels on the leaf nodes so that we can predict the new sample. And our aim is to build small decision trees which best fits the data. Okay, our intention is not to grow and grow the trees very large and make it complicated. Okay, our aim is to try to construct smaller trees which can best fit the data. So in this case, what happens, this side we need not grow further, so we stop here telling that the class label is skip, isn't it? Now we have to split only this part. Whereas if it was this case, we have actually here also we have some amount of both classes. Here also we have some amount of both classes. So we don't know whether we can stop here. We may still split in both the cases, but so the tree grows further. Okay, in both the cases, finally you will reach some leaf node. I am not telling that, but this would maybe not grow much in this, at least in this direction. It is already reached a class, I mean a leaf node. So the tree is little smaller compared to this. So we can say this is a better when we compare this split. Okay, we have other mechanisms to understand, but I am just telling by seeing what you feel. That's all. Okay, let us just see. I'll anyway refresh it again. I'm just introducing this. So the same kind, like say for example, they have constructed two decision trees based on that training data what we saw in the previous example. Okay, there are three attributes: length, thread, author, etc. and particular values it takes. And finally, if you can see what they have written is your leaf node, which is your class label. So it is either skip or it is red. So similarly for the other tree also they have done that. But what happened here? So here if you can see threads, after that it is again grown, etc. Whereas here they have stopped the further growing of the tree, telling that of course all the instances, like say for example length, if you see only two instances are falling to skip, rest all are in red, isn't it? So only a few percentage, even if you stop further growing the tree here, you will make only a very small percentage of error because you have only two skips here, isn't it? So we can generalize also, maybe telling that with a probability of 0.82, I can say that this is red class. Okay, this is skip class and this is red class by reads. Okay, reads class with a probability of 0.82. This is also possible. We don't have to further grow till here. Now what happens here? This is like perfectly we have come down to each leaf node being the class label, and everywhere we have given, I mean we have got we have reached to a leaf node where exactly we are having one class label here, but we don't have that. But still we will be able to classify with some amount of accuracy, because we had only like say two misclassification we can say, or two which are falling into other class. So we can generalize that they are all under reads class. So that is also possible, because our interest is some places we may have large, like say when I am talking about just two attributes, one attribute, it may not make sense. When you have say many attributes and lot of data, and then it is not further, I mean we are not able to stop the growing of the tree, we may have to decide such things also. That is, we may not think that every leaf node should have exact label there. We may have something like this where we tell that 82% of the time you will have correctly the reads class. So that is what happened here. So I'm just telling you that we will discuss it tomorrow if you're not clear, etc. I think it's time. So I just wanted to mention it here, and then we'll refresh it again. If you have any doubts, we'll discuss it now. Otherwise, we'll end the session. Anything you till now? I know that there are few other questions like how do we decide, when do we decide, etc. That is coming in upcoming slides. But my question is, till now what we have discussed, is there any things which are not clear for you? If so, please tell me.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
regarding with something, ma'am, this is like for the last question, the
yeah.
to
So
find
mid-sem. So otherwise, yeah, I'll answer Priyadarshan. Any other? Anyone has anything related to this particular question? I mean, decision tree. If no doubt, then I'll answer his doubt. Nobody has any queries. Okay. So what I wanted to say is.